And so this isn't specifically towards the Hidden Valley High School case, but can you kind of just give me a little bit of, in terms of a juvenile case, kind of the differences from an adult case?
Yeah, well, a lot of differences. The first one being that juvenile matters happen in family court or, not the main district court where all adult proceedings happen. So it's before the family court judge, and there's a completely different set of ORSs, Oregon Revised Statutes, related to juveniles and how those court proceedings happen. Speaking of differences, in the juvenile world, it's an adjudication, not a conviction. It's just there's a lot of language differences between the two systems. So a youth that's adjudicated on well, in this case, you mentioned the incident in Valley, which is currently charged as an assault 3, which is a felony assault. That individual, even if they're close to 18 years old, they can be in the juvenile system if they're adjudicated before, if it happened before they turned 18 and they were a minor. They can be in our system until they're 23 years old, or up to 5 years, a maximum of 5 years per felony. And so we try not to let that happen, but there isn't anything magical about the age 18. There's a lot of folks, it's out there that 18 is magical, and if you turn 18, everything goes away, and it just doesn't. And so, for instance, if we have a case with significant restitution, and say the youth was 16 and 16 and a half, when they were adjudicated, we will keep them on county probation for a period of time past their 18th birthday in order to clear up restitution and things like that.
And as far as, say they do have that you mentioned until they're 18, and then maybe now that they are an adult, does anything happen with the previous charges that they were when they were a juvenile, or is that completely different?
Yeah, if the world of expungement in juvenile cases, again, there's a lot of misconceptions out there about that. So current state law with a felony adjudication, the individual can apply for expunction within 5 years. And so it's not automatic at 18, not for charges like this anyway. And there's a process that it goes through where the district attorney's involved. They review the case, they look at things like, have there been other criminal, actually at that point, it would be criminal prosecutions as an adult. Say they turned 18 and got a conviction at that point, then that restarts the kind of the 5-year clock, and it's an application process for expunction at that point.
I guess another question I have is just looking, I don't want to talk specifically about the Hidden Valley case, but is that, I don't know how to phrase this. Is it, I don't want to say typical, but was this kind of a case that was a little bit, not concerning, but something that normally schools don't have to deal with, or?
Well, issues at school, because that's where kids get together. That's where a lot of our referrals come from, because that's where if two kids have a problem with each other, that's where they come together. That's where they meet. So I would say it's not uncommon to get assault charges from a school environment, but the last few years, as we all know, school violence in general is more concerning, and it always hits the radar at a higher level, just because of threats of violence. We all know about school shootings and things like that. So the threat assessments and risk assessments that happen at the school level now are much different than they were, just say, 10 years ago.
Absolutely. And from that threat assessment, is there a way of maybe minimizing that? Do you think, or what are some things?
Well, no, when I say threat assessment, there are school policies and assessment tools that they have that I can't really speak to. When a youth let's say, comes on the radar for just concerning behavior, not necessarily a crime. And they have a process that they go through with working with that youth and the family. If they come to us through we have to have a criminal referral for the juvenile department to work with them. Then we have an assessment tool, which is the validated evidence-based tool, which gauges risk to reoffend. And so when we're looking at what we do with those cases, that's a big factor. In the juvenile world, it's all about, it's more about risk than it is level of crime sometimes, because kids, they have an underdeveloped brain, they make poor decisions. What are all the conditions around that? And so we try to take all that into consideration when we move forward with these cases.